he makes the house really.
Right, but I guess since they're both right there, I don't know.
Regardless, it was a little weird that he goes to this house, obviously finds clues or something, and it's never brought up again. So we then head back to the gang at the well, pulling the zombie out. They're kind of, I mean, it's gross. He's this giant zombie who's all bloated and waterlogged. They pull him up, and he kind of gets caught. Like, I don't know if it was his belt caught on the top or just the weight kind of evened out, and they were having trouble pulling him out. They just about got him out, and his bottom half separates because it's so waterlogged and softened and shoots blood and gore everywhere. And then you just got half the zombie, kind of like a fat bicycle girl, rolling around on the lawn.
And then T-Dog bashes his head in with a baseball bat.
And says, good thing we didn't do something stupid like shoot it in the head.
Is it a baseball bat or a crowbar?
I think we're in a crowbar.
That was just an awesome scene. It's just like nothing can go right. The fact that they're able to. Glenn is almost killed by this thing. They lower it down. He snags them, even though when they think that they're kind of screwed at that point. They hoist the thing up, and it just falls apart and all that stuff. And it's not that it just fell apart, but then all of the ooze from the top half just goes down into the well.
It was practically a geyser going back down into there.
That was awesome. I just laughed so hard.
But that said, and granted, this is one of those things where we always go, well, we don't know because we're not in that situation. But even if they pulled that zombie out in one piece and he didn't split apart, he didn't shoot gore everywhere, would you ever in a million years drink water from the one well out of 5 that had a zombie down in it?
No way. And it really surprised me that Dale didn't say, there's way I'm drinking out of that.
Maybe not drink out of it, but they did say there were 5 wells. So maybe that's the well that if they had to, they could boil it and wash with it, or I don't know, do something with it.
I don't think I'd be drinking zombie water there.
No way.
No, you can have some of my zombie wine punch.
I'm glad they did this scene though, because this is a show that could get very dark and no light at the end of the tunnel, a big downer. I've heard that in the first season and some. So these are kind of like those Zombieland lighthearted moments that every once in a while I think it's good for it.
Oh yeah, it was a great scene. So we then go to Carol, whose last name is apparently Peltier, who is standing on the freeway near where they lost Sophia, and she's standing in front of a car that has written on the windshield, "Sophia, stay here, and we will come every day." And there's food and drinks sitting on the car with a blanket and a flashlight. And this is where Carol, Andrea, and Shane start walking back to the house, and Shane gives Andrea gun advice, and he says shooting moving target is difficult. We had the whole conversation earlier because I missed it here. But so they have that whole conversation.
Now, do you guys think that it seems like Shane is getting closer to Andrea? We know Daryl kind of had his moment, but at least I know Brad, you and I didn't feel like there's any kind of romantic tension going on there. But it seems like Shane and Lori are kind of connecting more. And so I wonder if this is going to kind of set Dale, if this is going to cause some tension between Dale, because Dale knows or has a pretty good inkling as to what was going on between Shane and Lori while Rick was gone. Did I say Lori earlier? I meant Andrea. Sorry. That the relationship or the friendship that Andrea and Shane are sparking is going to cause Dale to kind of go further towards jealousy because he knows what kind of person that Shane is.
Yeah, I can see it going that way.
I must be alone in the camp of not getting any kind of vibes, sparks or whatever between Shane and Andrea. I just think Andrea sees a black sheep that like she feels like, and maybe that's just some common ground. But I'm not getting any kind of attraction between the two at all.
And I don't see that either, but I could just see where Dale might get some jealousy because he sees that they're spending time together. I mean, whether there's anything there or not, I just got to know. I just got to be thinking that I don't think Dale has a very high opinion of Shane to begin with. I know that him and Andrea are kind of on the outs at this point. I think obviously Dale cares very greatly for Andrea, and the fact that it's Shane that's making the move, I think, is really going to start to set him off.
Yeah, he could be jealous of the connection perceived or real, regardless of whether it's sexual or not, because he used to have a pretty tight relationship with Lori, or with Lori Holder, with Andrea. I'm doing it too now, and now he doesn't ever since what he pulled at the CDC.
Plus, remember that scene with Dale and Rick and Shane out hunting the game, and Dale was the one who saw Shane take a beat on Rick. So I think that might play in as well.
It's funny you should mention that, Jim. At the beginning of the show, when when Shane was giving his eulogy of sorts, they cut away to Dale, and I kind of got a little look from Dale like, I'm not so sure that I actually believe what you're saying right now, Shane, because as Dale said, I know what kind of guy you are. Didn't he say that to Shane at one point?
Maybe. He can definitely tell when Shane is lying, though, to an extent. He seems to have that gift.
Yeah, I guess that's all I'm saying. He saw, what Shane did in the woods last season, and so I just kind of got the feeling that maybe he wasn't quite buying what Shane was. He wasn't picking up what Shane was putting down at the funeral.
Dale is like Uatu. He is the watcher.
Exactly.
So Glenn and Maggie ride horses into town, and I missed it before, but when she first tells him, we're going to ride horses into town, he watches her through binoculars as she's bringing the horses to him and says, ooh, farmer's daughter, nice, right before Lori stops in the film about the pregnancy test. So
I like that. Yeah, I like that that shot where she steps into the frame when you're looking through the binoculars.
I was just, his normal stutter thing.
Busted.
Yeah. It was just like that scene in Back to the Future. So Glenn is trying to impress her as they ride into town. He says, this is the kind of thing I normally do solo, and then he asks her if she's okay because she had a weird look on her face back when they were dealing with the well zombie, and he assumes she isn't used to seeing them. They get to Steve's pharmacy in a very small town, and there's a sign on the door that says, take what you need, God bless. And I kind of like the dichotomy of that as opposed to the department store in season 1 where they had to kind of question, are we looting, is this okay? And here in the small town, it's very well put out on Front Street, take what you need, it's okay.
It's kind of like a stark comparison to Herschel as well, who's more like, get out. He's supposedly like the man of God, but he's more like, when you guys are done here, you need to move on. And yet this store is kind of like, take what you need, God bless. Just a different sort of take on the whole God angle.
Right. So Maggie says she's going to go look for antibiotics, and Glenn gives her the list, while he goes off to look for the item Lori sent him after, the pregnancy test, of course. So he finds one, right when Maggie walks up, and he kind of scrambles around and puts it in his bag, and grabs the first thing he sees on the floor, which is a box of condoms, and they have a really awkward flirting moment. She ends up saying, look, I'll have sex with you, there's not a lot of partners around here, there's not a lot of people to choose from, and I'm lonely as well. And they get into some hanky-panky.
Yep, another thing that we all knew was going to happen, but the general TV watching public seemed to like it and be surprised, which is awesome.
And it was a great awkward scene. I mean, I really enjoyed those kind of scenes, especially with Glenn, and I thought they both pulled it off pretty well.
The corresponding scene in the comic, I felt was just as awkward for Glenn. She was very direct in the comic. The language is a little different, obviously, in the comic, because there are certain words you can't say on television.
It's salty.
Yes, but it might not have been. I honestly don't remember where they were in the comic. It might have been a pharmacy, but it was.
Did they actually sneak into the barn?
It's possible. I don't remember, but as far as the conversation goes, it was almost a direct translation from the comic.
It wasn't the barn.
Well, no. I think there's a part where you see them sneaking off to the barn, but you never actually see them in flagrante delicto.
Yeah, but quit using your Latin lawyer words.
It means in the heat of passion, and it's a funny phrase.
I still can't believe you used the phrase hanky-panky.
Yeah.
Necking?
Is that Latin? Hankus pankus?
The baloney pony.
Here's a scene where, John, like you were saying earlier, things went by too quick. I think, again, there's scenes that they drag out, and I would have liked to have seen them stretch out Glenn and Maggie maybe spending more time with each other, or maybe cut back and forth to them on their way to the pharmacy to kind of just show that they were maybe starting to get along with each other, or maybe starting to know each other. And I mean, not to say that in that situation those things wouldn't happen, or that things don't happen, or whatever. But I just would have liked to have seen more interaction with them before just kind of things happening as they did. I think it would have made it a little more interesting because if they don't know each other at all, it's kind of like whatever. But I also think that Maggie just kind of made it seem like, oh, it's just a one-time thing, it's no big deal, and I think that's a cover. I think maybe I'm biased by what I know in other media, but I think that they're going to form a relationship, and that it's not just going to be a one-time thing. It's not just going to be all about the physical. I think the two of them will start to kind of connect with each other because of that experience.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you seen romantic comedies? No, this didn't mean anything to me. It's only a one-time thing, and then like you said.
Well, what was that movie? Friends with Benefits. Friends with Benefits was all about that. They were just sex partners basically, and they said we keep the emotions out of it, and eventually, of course, it didn't end up that way. So, and that's pretty much how.
Spoiler.
I'm talking about.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
I think a lot of it was she was just impressed with it. Well, I mean, they're two horny 20-somethings who have been celibate for 2 months in the zombie apocalypse. The other is she was kind of impressed with what he was able to do with the zombie in the well. Like, he looked like he was going to die, and he came out on top. And even though they weren't able to successfully get the zombie out of the well, everything he tried to do, he was successful in.
Yeah, that was a really cool thing to know that somehow we didn't see it, they didn't show it to us, but somehow he got that rope around the zombie. I was really surprised, and the look on Dale's face too when he's like, I can't remember exactly how Glenn put it, but he basically said like, no, I did it. Just pull on the rope, you'll see. And he was like, holy crap, we got Glenn set the hook, we got a biter, so to speak.
Real quick, we definitely have to move on, but there was an article with an interview with Robert Kirkman, and he was saying how it's amazing that they can have this swimmer zombie get ripped in half and pour guts and blood out into a well, but they couldn't show so much as a butt cheek in a sex scene.
We got some good side note though.
See, but I don't buy that, because if you've seen Mad Men gets that's as risque as I've ever seen on.
Do you think it's the combo though, Russ? Do you think it's like, listen, we'll let you get away with the zombie gore, you're not having sex also?
I don't know, because there's a scene in Mad Men, believe it or not, that would rival almost any scene that they've done in The Walking Dead. Now, granted, it was just.
Are you talking about the lawnmower?
No. Oh, that was bad too. But
that was amazing.
No, there was a Korean War flashback in Mad Men, and I don't want to spoil it. But it's extremely graphic. Now, granted, it was one scene in one episode done one time, but
Mad Men also airs an hour later than Walking Dead does.
Yeah, I guess. And I've seen things like, I don't know. I mean, granted, it's FX and not AMC, but if you've seen stuff like The Shield gets pretty graphic. I mean, you see, rear nudity on males and females constantly. And like I said, on Mad Men, it was kind of in shadow, but they've almost done. I mean, you've seen pretty much a woman topless. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that it was slightly dark, I mean, it would.
There's pasties, I think, because it was an old-fashioned strip club.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I mean, there's a scene in a private residence where it's like it's all there. So when I read that, because I read that same thing from Kirkman that you did, John. I was a little taken aback by that because it doesn't seem to jive with what we've seen in other AMC shows, at least what I've seen on Mad Men. But you could be right. It could be the combo of the violence and gore tone combined with that might have been a problem.
Because the next thing you know, it's Spartacus.
Yeah, exactly.
Great show.
So Rick asks Herschel to reconsider letting them stay on the farm. And Rick says he lied to Carl that morning, and this is where he gets in that whole conversation about how he feels so bad about it. Herschel says his father didn't bother with the lies, he just beat him up instead. He left the farm when he was 15 and didn't return for many years, didn't go to his own father's funeral, and he still doesn't regret it. Herschel basically says that Carl loves Rick and that it's okay to lie once in a while. Rick again asks him to consider, and Herschel says if they will follow his rules, he will consider it.
Is this where they have the conversation about God? Or is
Maybe.
that later on?
I know this was the one where they're in front of the barn talking. I think the one where they're talking about God is down on the vista.
Yeah, that's when he says, "Come here, Rick. Take a look at this." And they cut to that scene where he's looking out, on that obviously green screen moment, which was all I'm trying to say. It was a really bad effect. With the lengths that they go to make the zombies look as good as they do, you'd think they could get a green screen shot right, but that was pretty amateurish looking.
Negative Nancy.
Hey, I'm only speaking what I see.
So we cut back to Glenn and Maggie. They're riding on the horses again, and this is where Glenn starts to talk. Maggie interrupts and says, "Don't spoil it. It's a one-time thing." They get back to the house. Lori asks Glenn for the pregnancy test. He gives it to her, but doesn't say anything, and he walks away looking very concerned. Daryl gets back to the motorhome, and Carol has cleaned up the place. Daryl gives her flowers, says it's a Cherokee rose, and tells her the story about when, during the Trail of Tears, when the soldiers were moving the Native Americans off their land, a lot of the children would die and get lost along the way, and eventually the Cherokee mothers and the elders held this prayer ceremony, and the mothers cried so much from losing the little ones along the way that the next day they looked in that same spot, and there was a Cherokee rose blooming right there where the tears fell. And he says he doesn't think any of the roses bloom for his brother. He thinks they bloomed for Sophia, and he again reaffirms that he thinks they're going to find her.
This was a very popular scene with the female friends of ours.
I was just about to say, is anybody else in this virtual room, were they wanting to throw up at this point?
No.
It didn't bother me. I mean, I didn't think it was poorly acted or bad.
No, I guess all I'm saying is that Daryl is really, really close to turning into a big sissy, and that's really going to piss me off if that happens.
I didn't take it that way. I thought this was interesting because I thought the whole Daryl going off on his own and looking for Sophia, I thought was an opportunity for Daryl to be Daryl. Like, he's going to be the huntsman. He's going to pick up a trail. He's going to be by himself. He's out in the woods. He's got a mission.
We did kind of see some of that.
Yeah, and then I thought coming back, I think for whatever reason, and maybe it was because maybe we find out he was mistreated by his parents or whatever. That
more than likely.
Yeah, that he really feels for the fact that this woman who it was in an abusive relationship. I mean, your husband beat her up and stuff like that, and now her kid has gone on top of it. That maybe he's this is the other side of that. It's like, okay, he's been able to kind of be the badass and to go off and do his own thing, but he does realize that there's a little girl out there that's lost, and her mother really does care for her, and she really is a good person, and that this is his way of just kind of connecting with her and just trying to convince her that he's on it, he's going to find her, and just get her to let it to not give up hope and for them to keep on going.
This situation is like the closest thing to a real family he's ever had. We get the impression of anyway, and I think that's enough to change a person.
Yeah,
I suppose that's a valid enough point, but this is just not the Daryl that we were introduced to, and obviously he's been changing. Yes, he's been changing and growing, but I guess I just don't know if I like it or not.
I think if nothing else, it's going to set up interesting conflict if and when Merle ever shows back up. And I think the more we see him change, the more conflict we're going to have later on. Which, if that's what we get out of it, I think that'll be a good thing.
Yeah, it'll all be worth it at that point.
I just feel like I'm missing there's like an information gap. I think if you watch season 1 and then immediately watch season 2, it seems like we're getting a different character altogether without seeing the transformation.
A lot of that's going to be reaction to reviews. I mean, almost universally, every review of The Walking Dead from professional critics complained about how, what is the point of this Merle character and this Daryl Dixon character, who are these obnoxious racist a-holes who are basically caricatures of of Southerners? And, not all of them are saying it's offensive, but they're saying it's cartoony and it needs to be toned down. And I think they at least chose for Daryl. I mean, we don't know for Merle yet, but for Daryl, let's make him more sympathetic, more of a three-dimensional human being, and not just a, walking attitude with an accent. And I think it works for a better character. I mean, I don't know about you guys.
I think there's a middle ground that they're missing. I think they went too far the other way, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting when Merle comes back and whip his ass into shape.
Well, too, don't forget, we're also seeing where basically the premiere, the pilot, the season 2 premiere was really 2 episodes kind of shoved into one. So who knows what was kind of cut or clipped to fit both of those into that time frame. So it could be that we would have seen a little bit more of that interaction or that transformation that just didn't get used. And so, like you said, John, we're kind of seeing the abbreviated version of what happened with Daryl.
True. So Rick is sitting with Carl, and he starts to tell him that he lied about Sophia, but Carl says that Lori already told him. Carl says it's okay, and asks if they've found her yet, and Rick says he thinks they will. Carl says they're now in the same club now because they've both been shot, and Rick says, well, just don't tell your mother that. And then in a scene I think I'll at least say I've been waiting for, and I'm pretty sure you guys all have been too, Rick gives the sheriff's hat to Carl.
Yeah, I had a big dumb smile on my face that whole time.
Yeah, I think everybody. I think we should add that anybody who's not reading the comic that Carl's been running around wearing that hat since the beginning.
Yeah.
So
I think episode 6 or issue 6, issue 5, something like that.
Yeah, so it's good to see him get it.
Yeah, that was a definite fist pump, yell out loud kind of moment, and just really made me happy to see that.
Now just get him a 6-shooter, damn it. So for our final scene of the night, Lori goes outside by herself with a pregnancy test, out to a field, she pees on it, and in what seems faster to me than what a normal pregnancy test would be, although I've never peed on one, there's a plus sign. She's pregnant, and the episode is over.
Yeah, I didn't quite get that whole. I was like, okay, why does she feel the need to go all the way outside to do that? Why doesn't she just
with a knife? I thought she was going to kill somebody.
Yeah. Well, I knew that's what she was going to do, but I was like, why wouldn't she just do that in the bathroom?
The best explanation I saw was that she's going to have to hide this thing, so either she goes and pees on it in the bathroom, then sneaks out of the house and throws it into the field, or she just goes out in the field, pees on it, and throws it away. She's kind of out of the middleman.
I would think it would be less likely that somebody's going to sneak up on her or see her. I guess if she's having to actually go outside, stop, pee on the thing, look at it, and then toss it, the odds are more likely that she would get found out by somebody outside because not everybody's staying in the house than if she had just peed on the thing in the bathroom in the house and then pitched it outside or wrapped it up in a bunch of toilet paper and just threw it at the bottom of the trash can or something. I don't know. It just seemed odd. And yeah, that must be like the world's fastest pregnancy test ever. I mean, because it was like 3 seconds and it was like ready. I was like, what? Yeah, and then just the whole shock of them actually showing her squatting down, peeing, and you could hear it and everything. I was like, wow.
Am I going to hear this? And yeah, it was surprising.
She had been drinking a lot of fluids.
I was like, wow.
So I was not wowed, of course, by this ending. We talked about it a little bit already because we all kind of knew, that she was pregnant. I guess the bigger, mystery is supposed to be whose it is. This is the first time I felt shortchanged by knowing the comic so well. Like this episode, I think I knew Glenn and Maggie were getting together. I knew Lori was pregnant. We know some other things that we're not ready to talk about yet in the general situation that they're in. So this was kind of like the first time I was like, man, I wish I didn't know so much. I didn't really get a bang out of this ending or, the couple of main points of this episode.
I would agree that I was in that same situation. It was kind of anticlimactic, but, it happened the way we kind of wanted it to. So, at the same time, it was okay.
I feel a little hypocritical in liking this episode as much as I do because one of the complaints I had about the last episode was we're not moving forward. Things aren't moving fast. We're still looking for Sophia. Carl is still on the mend, and for the most part, that's kind of what we got in this episode. But this episode, for me, had so many more moments that were fun. The thing with the well, Maggie and Glenn finally getting together, Carl with the hat, Lori. Whether we are happy with the method or not. I mean, Lori finding out herself for sure that she's pregnant. The conversation between Rick and Herschel about whether or not they could stay there. All those things I think were good, important moments, which really make me like this episode a lot more. I think than the previous one. But again, I think we're 4 episodes in, and I kind of stick by my statement that I think I'd feel better pacing wise if this was episode 3 we were talking about instead of episode 4 we were talking.
Agreed.
I kind of agree and disagree in terms of knowing stuff from the comic and whether that spoils things. Because Brad, as you pointed out, in the scene where Carl gets the hat, you get a big dumb grin on your face, and so did I. But I also had that for, say, the scene with Glenn and Maggie, or some of the other scenes that we've seen from the comic. Even though, and let's, this is not spoiling anything, but all those things happen in the comic, but they all happen in a different location, in a different context, in a slightly different way. They're all in one sense from the comic, but in another sense they're very different. But on the other hand, we complain a lot, whether it be us or just other commenters out there, other fans of the show, when they go to the CDC because that's not in the books, or when they do X, Y, or Z because that's not in the books. We can't have it both ways. Either we got to accept that some of the things are going to be from the book and some aren't. Or, you know what I mean? You can't just complain when things are not in the comics and when things are. It didn't bother me that I knew they were coming because I had a big dumb grin on my face the whole time.
All I'm saying is I enjoyed Shane shooting Otis because I didn't know it was coming at all as an ending than finding out Lori was pregnant. That's all I'm saying. I don't complain when things that don't happen happen.
No, I know we don't. I'm just speaking in generalities.
Yeah, just for me as a comic reader, this ending didn't have the bang that a couple of the other ones have had because I knew it was coming. That's all. How about Busters? We want to do Busters, and then we're running a little late here, but we got some other things to get to. I'll start off. I give it a 3. I was like hanging in there at 2.5, 3, but I'm gonna give it a 3 because I think the moments were good, even though I didn't get so much out of them. I think the Maggie Glenn hookup went over well. It was done well. I liked the swimmer, and the Lori reveal at the end is a big one. I mean, now we're gonna deal with whose baby is it and all that stuff. So I went with a 3.
I'll give it a 3.75. It wasn't my favorite episode ever, but it didn't do anything that really tipped me off.
I was going to give it a generous 3, but I'm gonna have to say it just wasn't. It didn't do it enough for me to deserve the 3. I'm gonna give it a 2.75, especially even though it's a separate deal, but especially because of what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. It just soured the whole experience for me, I suppose.
I give it a 3.5. I think it was solid enough. I think it was paced a little better, and I think if they were moving on with some things, I think it definitely would have been above 4. I mean, the zombie floater and the Maggie Glenn stuff was definitely enough to push it in a higher category.
I give it a 3. I agree with what Russ was saying about the pacing issues, but that's kind of been an overall theme in a lot of these episodes. In episode 2, it seems like well, again, what John was saying before, some things seem to happen, rapid fire, and then other things seem to take forever to happen. And I think we kind of see this more in this episode. The Sophia, subplot has overstayed its welcome by a couple episodes, in my opinion. I'm interested for them to get on with the rest of the Herschel story. I can't wait to hear what the community who haven't read the comics think about the rest of what's going on. So I give it a solid 3 Busters for this episode. It's just, it was a C+.
All right, I have some Twitter busters real quickly. Alicia gives it a 4 for the first half and a 2.5 for the second half. A bit of a snoozer. Wild Mercy gives it a 3. Let's see. Tammy gives it a 4. Whitney Green gives it a 3.5. Not as good as last week, but Tubby Well Zombie splitting in 2 and Lori's PT result were high points. Caesar gives it a 4 out of 5. Summer gives it a 5 out of 5. First episode to make me cry. She's a Dixon's Vixen, so I'm pretty sure I know what part made her cry. Tiny Rubber Robot gives it a 4 out of 5. Lots of fun, big comic moments, yet it still seemed to drag a little. 3.75 from Liz and 2.5 from Soda. Best part of the show was seeing Blank in the previews for next week. We will get to the Blank shortly. We did a Twitter poll again. Got a little more votes this time, which is cool. 23% gave it a 5. I just don't get a 5. I'm not complaining. I didn't think the show was bad, but I wouldn't put it in like the best of the season or of the series so far. But 23% gave it a 5. 21% gave it a 3.5. And then you have 19% in 4 and 3. So a little bit lower this week, I would say. Definitely more in the 3 to 4 range than the 4 to 5 range, which we've been getting for the other shows. So thanks for everybody again for hanging out on Twitter during the episode. We had a lot of fun. And you can follow at WDTV Podcast to join in some fun during the commercial breaks. Brad, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna save. We have some voicemails and stuff regarding this episode. I think we'll do them in the beginning next show, being that we're running a little long. But I did want to get to Aaron's email, Brad, because he has some good thoughts. You want to give that to us?
Yeah, we got this this afternoon from Aaron from the Out Now podcast. Says, hey, John and the rest of the gang. Had some thoughts on Cherokee Rose. Overall, I would say 3.5 busters. After Save the Last One, which I still regard as my second favorite episode of the entire series, it was certainly a bit of a momentum killer to me when watching this episode. It was obviously very character-focused, which is fine, and what I mostly expect from the series. It's just that not a whole lot of it was interesting. The good, getting a little more out of who Herschel is, was interesting, and should provide for some nice turns in the weeks to come, especially as us comic readers know. Carl bonding with Rick and wearing the hat was nice, and Glenn helped provide us with what many have said the show has been lacking, the chance to see side boob. But seriously, no one dislikes Glenn, and it was nice to see him get to have a little action in more ways than one this week. The bad, let's find Sophia already. This seems to be a kind of a running theme lately. It's something that more people are saying. I'm certain we all feel the same way. Let's find Sophia already. A lot of us are like a broken record with this.
I don't know what I can't put my finger on where they went wrong, but other angles work like this in other TV shows, like where you drag something out and that's the question. Who shot JR? I'm dating myself, but it can work, but it's not working here.
No, it's definitely not.
I don't know where they went wrong, but it's not working.
There has to be some kind of serious payoff, and I have a really bad feeling about what that's going to be, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, here we go. A lot of us are like a broken record with this, but the girl needs to be found already. And he says something here that pretty much reflects what I said earlier. And is also starting to soften Daryl a bit too much in my eyes, but that may be something better expressed next week. I'm not sure what he means by better expressed next week. Anyways, also the swimmer, while initially grotesquely cool to look at, this whole sequence was pretty throwaway. And Jordan kind of said as much, didn't you, Jordan?
Yeah, more or less. It was a fun scene, but it was just kind of shoehorned in there so they had an actual zombie in the episode.
Right. Even if they got him out, no one would be drinking that water after the fact anyway, which we kind of all said as well. One final thought, since Lori found out she was pregnant, glad we had that sound effect, right? I'm not Aaron. I could have done without it. It would be pretty boring if we found out that Jenner told Rick the same thing. There's no real tension at this point if Rick and Lori both know and try to tell each other the things they both already know. If I'm correct, I need a more fun theory for what Jenner said now, such as, don't trust Shane or his pants. So those are my 2 cents. Not a bad episode, just a big slowdown from last week.
Very cool. Thank you, Aaron. Jim, I think you have one other message that you want to go with, and then we'll kind of close this out before we go to the preview for next week.
I do indeed. We got an email from Linda Murphy, who is trying to get members to join a Facebook page to get Norman Reedus to host Saturday Night Live. If you're on the Facebooks, and most of us are these days, the name of the group that you want to look for is Norman Reedus to host SNL. And she asked if we could spread the word on that to get the online petition as many signatures as possible. I think it'd be kind of cool to have Norman Reedus on Saturday Night Live. So if you're interested, if you're on the Facebooks and you're so inclined to do so, if you're Dixon's Vixen or a Boondock Betty, go ahead and join that group. Again, it's Norman Reedus to host SNL.
That'd be cool. Him and Stephen Yoon did a funny thing. What was it, the Soup? What show did?
Yeah, that was the Soup.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I bet he'd be pretty good on Saturday Night Live. And I bet he'd have somebody to hang out with after the show.
And they could have Rob Zombie be the musical guest.
That would actually be funny.
That'd be fun.
Or
Does he do
the
music anymore? I don't think he does music anymore. He's directing bad
I don't think he
horror
ever did
movies.
music.
Ooh, send hate mail to Jordan at Legion of Dudes. Okay, Russell, why don't you do a little bit of business, and we will then do some more stuff.
All right. So if you're a fan of the Walking Dead TV podcast, and obviously you are, and you're not listening to the show from what we call the master feed at hhwled.com, we implore you to check out the other shows that we have on the network. We refer to HHWLED as a network all the time, and we have a variety of other shows. We have Brad's show, which he hosts with Frank Rincon and Bill McDonald, called Half Hour Wasted, where they talk about a variety of different topics, just kind of random comic book movies, Bill fixing his car, voicemails, emails, Twitter, all kinds of stuff like that. Usually if there's some sort of Dallas Con going on, I usually track my way up there, and we have a lot of good fun and talk about that. We also have the Legion of Dudes, which is my podcast along with, I say mine, our podcast along with John, Jim, Jordan, and Mr. Ken Morgan, who is not on the Walking Dead podcast. And our shtick on the Legion of Dudes is typically to take something and just kind of dissect it in great detail. So we try and alternate around. We'll take typically it's mainly comic books as opposed to most other stuff, but it's comics, it's movies. We do a monthly what we call a BS show where we just kind of talk about random topics. We usually kind of go round table of video games, movies, comics, etc. So that's a lot of fun. We also have another podcast that Ken Morgan and Art Lewandowski, who used to do Too Old to Grow Up podcast, started called Tech Dudes. And as you can guess, it's all about technology. And episode 2 of that will be up very shortly. And like I said, we just focus on technology. We kind of throw a little bit of a geek flair towards technology, so it's not your typical thing that you would hear on like Leo Laporte's Network and stuff like that. Some other shows that we have on the network as well are Out Now with Aaron and Abe, which is a movie review podcast. So it's Aaron and Abe get together and talk about recent movies that have come out. And it's not just genre or geek genre movies. I mean, it's really anything that's coming out they talk about. So that's a lot of fun. Some other shows that aren't on what we call the master feed but are out there are what we call the PKD Media Black Box and its shows, which is Tales from the Attic with Donnie Salvo and as well as
Carol Chronicles.
Yeah, the Carol Chronicles with John Carroll, and then Sean Pryor of PKD Media and Action Lab Entertainment, his PKD Media Black Box, where again they kind of focus mainly on comics and movies and talk about a lot of different stuff. So there's a lot of stuff we have going on what, like I said, what we refer to as the network. And you can find all of that at hhwled.com, as well as we have some blog posts that go up with movie reviews or pertinent things that are going on that we come across. A lot of times Warner Brothers or Dark Horse, some of the other companies will send us some promo materials that we'll put up. So definitely check it all out and see what we have to offer other than just the Walking Dead TV podcast.
Well said.
So that's it for the non-spoiler part of our show. We've got our end notes here, including information about the contest, the Where's Sophia contest. And then after the end liner, we're going to go into spoiler discussion about next week. So if you haven't seen the preview and the teaser for next week, don't listen after that. Just skip to the end if you want to hear the bloopers. Jim, take it away.
If you would like to immortalize yourself by leaving a voicemail for the Walking Dead TV podcast, you may do so at 516-468-7912, or you may leave an electronic mail, as the kids call it, an email, at comments@walkingdeadtv.com. Jordan, what are the details on the Where's Sophia contest? Have we found her? If you like Carmen Sandiego, is she lost to us forever?
She's more like Walter, wears a lot of stripes. But if you have a guess as to where Sophia is, send us an email, send us a voicemail, only one per person, please. You could win a signed copy of Volume 1 or Volume 2, signed by Robert Kirkman and Chris Hardwick. So definitely get in on that contest.
Check out hhwlod.com for all the great shows on our network, like Russ was talking about before. The newest member of the HHWLOD family is the Tech Dudes podcast. You definitely want to check that out. You can also find these shows on Facebook. Legion of Dudes, I know for a fact Facebook has been refurbished lately, so keep an eye open for that group. Forumforgeeks.com is a forum where geek can be a geek. Check out all of our forums there for all the podcasts on our network. And you can follow us on Twitter at WDTV Podcast and at HHWLOD_network.
So until there's no more room in hell and the dead walk the earth, remember, Farmer's Daughter, nice. So for those of you who aren't listening to the spoiler discussion, have a nice week. And for those of you who are, it starts now.
What the hell are they doing putting Merle in the preview?
It's a teaser. It's called a teaser for a reason.
You know, I try not to use this kind of language on our shows, but they must have a bunch of dumbasses working in AMC marketing. I mean, you don't spoil the biggest reveal your show could possibly do in an upcoming, hey, this is what's happening next week. You just don't do that.
I agree. The only thing, I watched it. I didn't even watch the preview, and then I was spoiled by people talking about it on Twitter and stuff. So then I watched the preview. Is there any chance that it's some sort of flashback, or I've heard the term hallucination. I don't know who would be hallucinating.
Yeah, there's a chance. Yeah, I mean, we've seen, not necessarily in the next week's episode's previews, but in promos for the season, we saw several scenes in those promos that we haven't seen yet in the new season. So maybe this is something like that. But having said that, in all of the next week on Walking Dead teases they've given us, all those scenes have shown up the next week. So
if the ratings take an uptick next week, we'll know exactly why.
Exactly.
And that's why I think they did it. I think they did something that's going to get people talking, that's going to get buzz going, that's going to allow them to promo that a little more. And I think it's. I mean, I could easily argue both sides of this coin, but I think if you're the network and you're looking at it from a business perspective, you want to try and get the most bang for your buck and get as many eyeballs on the TV set as you can. And if teasing a little bit that Merle is coming back, which is something that everybody's been speculating for a long time, gives you that buzz and that bump, then that's what they're going to do.
Two words. November sweeps.
Yeah,
just like Russ was saying, they're trying to get as many eyeballs on as many screens as possible, so they can get those November sweeps numbers, which says how high they can set the revenue for the rest of the season. So that's why they're bringing out the big guns in November to get as high a rating as they possibly can.
And if you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch the preview. I never do.
Does that mean we spoiled it for you?
Yeah, I only watched it because it came up in our email thread, and I knew we were going to talk about it, and I didn't want to be, I didn't want to have nothing to add. But if you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch it. I mean, and beyond that, we have no idea. Like I forget who said, we have no idea what the context is. I remember season 3 of Lost, there was that promo with Jin speaking English, saying everything's going to change, and everybody freaked out, and then it was a fever dream. It was a hallucination.
AMC apologists, listen to me. How is it better to put him in a totally nondescript tiny bit of the preview for next week than leave you with him in the last seconds of this show?
No, I agree with you there.
How is it a better teaser in the preview that half the people don't watch for a split second in a part that we know might not even be in the show, then end with a shot of Merle or a quick something at the end of the show? How is that better?
No, I can't argue that.
If they could. I mean, again, it could be a fever dream. It could be a hallucination or a flashback. It wouldn't make sense to end an episode that way.
They could have Merle without having Merle. They could have shown you go back to the house, which meant nothing, and show writing on the wall that Daryl saw but we didn't know that said, Merle was here, or something more witty than that to tell everybody that it was Merle. Something in the show rather than a 4 second. It was probably a second and a half clip of his face in a preview that half the people don't watch anyway. I'm done. Anybody else?
Maybe Daryl took some of Merle's Walter White blue crystal meth from the episode a few back, and that's what's going on.
Jordan,
they've been eating those pollos hermanos.
Exactly.
Now that we've gotten all the spoilers and Venom out, can you give us the official word on the the episode name and the synopsis and things?
Sure. The episode is called Chupacabra, which is a kind of like a Mexican
goat sucker. It's a goat sucker.
It's a goat sucker. It's a vampire creature of Mexico.
Yeah, it's a fake animal that lives in Mexico.
Another X-Files reference.
What's that, John?
It could be an X-Files reference, which we missed one last week with the Morley cigarettes, which is also an X-Files thing, and many other shows as well. But
the Chupacabra, especially down in the southern part of Texas, is a big deal because it gets a lot of play because people constantly claim to have seen a Chupacabra, or especially along the border.
Yeah, we have the Jersey Devil up here. I mean, I assume every locale has something like that. But
we've got pretty conclusive video evidence that the Chupacabra is real.
Sure you do. The details for the episode are: concerned for their safety, the group makes a plan. One that Herschel disagrees with adamantly. He makes it clear that the group is fine to stay for now, but not indefinitely. Chupacabra.
Good night.
Good night.